It was a cold night in New York City, December 8, 1980. A famous musician, John Lennon, was walking home. His life ended suddenly and shockingly. To understand this sad end, we must go back to his very first days. John Winston Lennon was born in Liverpool, England, on October 9, 1940. His childhood was difficult. His father was a sailor and often away. His mother, Julia, also could not fully care for him. So John grew up mostly living with his aunt, Mimi, and her husband, George. He was shaped by 5 strong women in his family. One was his mother. They offered care, but John always felt a deep sense of being left alone. This feeling of abandonment stayed with him. It fueled his art and his anger for his whole life. Then a terrible event changed everything. His mother, Julia, died suddenly. A car hit her while she walked home. This sad moment deeply hurt young John. Her death was a secret key to many of his most important songs. We will understand this mystery better in Chapter 4. From a young age, John was a rebel and a troublemaker. He did not like rules and often challenged authority. This defiant spirit would later push him to challenge the President of the United States. We will learn more about this big confrontation in Chapter 6. After his mother's death, John felt great sadness and anger. He felt lost. But then he got his first guitar. This was more than just an instrument. It was an act of rebellion. This act put him on a path to meet another young songwriter. That meeting would change John's life and the world forever. 2. A new band. John Lennon was a teenager who loved music. In 1956, he started a band. He called them the Quarrymen, named after his school. One day in July 1957, John met another boy, Paul McCartney, at a church party. Paul could play guitar well. John asked him to join the Quarrymen. Paul then suggested his friend George Harrison. George was only 14. John thought he was too young. But Paul insisted. He made George play for John on the top deck of a bus. George played a song called Raunchy. John was surprised by George's skill and let the young kid join the band. The band, now called the Beatles, soon went to Germany. They played many long, hard nights in Hamburg's noisy clubs. They had to perform for countless hours, often staying awake until morning. To keep going, they used special stimulant pills. This was a very difficult and demanding time, but it forged their sound and made their music strong and raw. It was a shocking experience, very different from the clean-cut image the world would later know. In 1962, Brian Epstein became their manager. He had no experience in music management, but he saw something very special in the band. Brian helped them change their look, moving them from leather jackets to sharp, matching suits. John did not like wearing suits at first. He found it too formal. But he agreed, saying he would wear a bloody balloon if someone paid him enough. Brian also harbored a deep hidden affection for John, which was complicated. They even took a mysterious holiday to Spain together, just the two of them. What truly happened on that trip would be revealed much later in Chapter 5. The band found a new drummer, Ringo Starr. Their new look was ready. The Beatles were on the edge of something big. In October 1962, they released their first song, Love Me Do. They had no idea this single would start a huge global event called Beatlemania. This force would soon be so powerful it could even tear them all apart. 3. The famous Beatles. The Beatles became incredibly famous around the world very quickly. This time was known as Beatlemania. Wherever they played, fans screamed loudly. The noise was so loud that the band could not always hear themselves playing their own music. This constant chaos and touring were very hard for John Lennon. Despite his witty public image, John felt great pressure. He was secretly battling feelings of insecurity and depression. During this period, he gained some weight. He called this his Fat Elvis period. A hurtful comment from a reporter about his appearance deeply affected him. This moment triggered a long struggle with how he saw himself for the rest of his life. John put some of these private feelings into the lyrics of one of his most popular songs, Help. He later admitted, "I meant it. It was me singing Help." In March of 1965, John had his first experience with LSD, a powerful drug. It was an accident. A dentist secretly put the drug into the coffee of John and George Harrison during a dinner party. This was not just a simple party story. For John, this event was like unlocking a new universe for writing songs, which would lead to many new ideas, as we will see in Chapter 4. However, it also started some problems that would later help to break the band apart. In March of 1966, John gave an interview to a reporter. He made a shocking comment, saying that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus. In England, this remark did not cause much trouble. But 5 months later, when the comment was printed in a magazine in America, it caused a huge uproar. People were very angry. There were protests where people burned Beatles records. John even received threats against his life. This terrible reaction led to a very important and scary decision. The band decided to stop touring forever. Their final concert was in August of 1966. 4. A big change. The Beatles' last concert was on August 29, 1966. After years of constant touring, the band decided to stop. John Lennon was tired of the noise from screaming fans. He felt they could not hear their own music anymore, and their playing was getting worse. This big change meant they could now spend all their time in the studio, making new and exciting sounds. This led to a new kind of revolution in music. John's past pain came out in his new songs. When he was a teenager, his mother, Julia, died in a car accident. This event was very sad and difficult for him. It stayed with him for many years. This deep sadness and loss inspired his song Strawberry Fields Forever, released in 1967. The song had dreamlike words and a new sound. It showed his personal feelings in a very open way. People called it amazing and creative. In November 1966, John visited an art show in London. There he met Yoko Ono, an artist from Japan. One of her artworks let people hammer a nail into a wooden board. John wanted to do it, but Yoko said he had to pay 5 shillings. John said he would pay an imaginary 5 shillings and hammer an imaginary nail. He also saw an apple on display as art and took a bite. This first meeting was a turning point. It would soon change John's personal life, leading to the end of his first marriage. It also started the path for the Beatles to break up. In the summer of 1967, the Beatles released All You Need Is Love. The song quickly became famous for its message of peace. But just 1 month later, in August, something very sad happened. Their manager, Brian Epstein, died suddenly. This was a great shock to the band. John later said, "I knew we were in trouble then. We've fucking had it." He felt that without Brian, the band had lost its direction and was in danger. As they began to record new albums, John made a bold decision. He brought Yoko Ono with him into the recording studio. This broke a silent rule that no wives or girlfriends should be there during work. Yoko's constant presence made the other Beatles uncomfortable. The happy feeling in the studio changed. There was new tension, and arguments began. This decision created a deep crack in the band, signaling that the Beatles might not last much longer. 5. The end of the band. The band was falling apart. During these difficult times, a secret from the past was remembered. John had a very close and personal bond with Brian Epstein, the Beatles' manager. Brian was gay, and he had strong feelings for John. Once, John and Brian took a trip together to Spain. John later talked about this trip. He said it was almost a love affair, but it never happened physically. He described it as a pretty intense relationship. It was John's first time truly understanding a friendship with a gay person. He even joked, looking at other men and asking Brian, "Do you like that one?" John's feelings about Brian were complex, and he sometimes even made fun of Brian for being gay. The Beatles were truly falling apart after Brian's death. John had decided to leave the band in September 1969. He agreed to keep this news private while the band settled their business deals. But in April 1970, Paul McCartney released his first solo album. With this, Paul also told the world that the Beatles were over. John was furious about Paul's announcement. He felt deeply betrayed. John cried out, "Jesus Christ, he gets all the credit for it." He believed he had started the band and that he had ended it. He saw Paul's public statement as a way to promote his own record, and John felt he had been a fool not to do the same. Amidst this drama, John took a stand on political issues. In 1969, he decided to return his Member of the British Empire, or MBE, medal to the Queen. He had received this honor with the other Beatles in 1965. John sent a letter to the palace with his reasons. He was protesting Britain's role in the Civil War in Nigeria. He was also against Britain supporting America in the Vietnam War. His third reason was a little unexpected and funny. He was upset that his song Cold Turkey was dropping down the music charts. This showed John's mix of serious political protest and his personal, sometimes humorous thoughts. The Beatles were now officially over. John felt a new freedom. He chose to deal with his deep-seated childhood pains through a type of primal scream therapy. This intense therapy aimed to release old emotional hurts. He poured all his raw feelings into his first solo album, called John Lennon/Plastic Ono Band. It was brutally honest and showed his deepest emotions, like his feelings of rejection from his mother. This very public form of therapy and his strong political views would soon make John a person of interest to the United States government, leading to new troubles. 6. Life in America. John and Yoko moved to New York City in 1971. They quickly used their fame to become radical activists. They spoke loudly about peace and against the Vietnam War. They also supported women's rights and fair treatment for all people. They even made an album, Sometime in New York City, that had songs about these important issues, including their fight for a green card. Their strong political voice made the U.S. government very uneasy. President Richard Nixon and his administration saw John Lennon as a major problem. They worried that his anti-war actions could cost Nixon the presidential election. In 1972, Nixon's team began a plan to force John to leave the country. They used an old cannabis conviction from London from 1968 as their reason to deny him entry. For 3.5 long years, John fought this deportation in court. Secret FBI files, revealed much later, showed that the White House had been closely watching him. Senator Strom Thurmond even wrote a memo suggesting that sending John away would be a smart move against his activism. But in 1975, a court finally stopped the deportation attempt. The court clearly stated that the government could not deport someone for political reasons that were kept secret. John finally received his green card in 1976, allowing him to live and work in the United States permanently. This period also saw big changes in John's personal life. From 1973 to 1975, John and Yoko separated. He later called this time his lost weekend. During these 18 months, he spent time in Los Angeles and New York, often with May Pang. He drank a lot and was sometimes in the news for wild behavior. But he also kept busy with music. He produced an album for his friend Harry Nilsson called Pussycats. He also made popular songs with other artists. For example, his song Whatever Gets You Through the Night, which featured Elton John, became his only solo #1 hit in America while he was still alive. He also collaborated with David Bowie on the song Fame, which was a #1 hit for Bowie. After these many years of public activism, fighting the government, and living a very open and sometimes wild life, John Lennon suddenly disappeared from public view. For 5 years, the world's most famous rock star was nowhere to be seen or heard making new music. The reason for his quiet departure was more surprising and personal than anyone could have guessed at the time. 7. A Quiet Life. John Lennon took a long 5-year break from making music. This was a surprising choice for such a famous rock star. During this time, he was not seen much by the public. But even during his earlier Lost Weekend, a period of trouble and separation from Yoko, he created some music. One song from that period, Whatever Gets You Through the Night, became very famous. It was a song he made with Elton John, who sang and played piano on it. This song was John's only solo song to reach #1 in America while he was alive. After his Lost Weekend, John decided to live a quiet life. He became a house husband after his son, Sean Ono Lennon, was born on his 35th birthday in 1975. John wanted to spend all his time with Sean. He stopped being a rock star and focused on his family. He woke up early every day to plan and prepare meals and to spend time with his son. He baked bread, a very different activity from performing concerts for thousands of fans. In 1977, he even said publicly that he and Yoko wanted to be with their baby as much as possible. This quiet life lasted for 5 years. Then something unexpected happened that made John want to make music again. In June 1980, he went on a sailing trip to Bermuda. He was on a 43-foot boat when a big storm hit. Everyone on the boat got sick except John. He took control and guided the boat through the rough seas. This frightening experience made him feel alive and full of new ideas. It brought back his desire to create and write songs. Soon after, John returned to the music studio. He worked with Yoko Ono to make a new album called Double Fantasy. This album showed how happy and peaceful his life had become. He felt complete, enjoying his family and his music. He gave many interviews, talking about his hopes and plans for the future. He was excited about new songs and new beginnings. But John did not know that he had only 3 more weeks left to live. 8. The Final Day. John Lennon's final day, December 8, 1980, began with a strong sense of hopeful energy and artistic purpose. He had recently released his successful album Double Fantasy, a collection of songs that showed his joy and contentment in family life after a 5-year break from music. John felt happy, fulfilled, and excited about creating many new songs with Yoko Ono, full of plans for the future. That day was busy. In the late afternoon, around 5 o'clock, John and Yoko left their home, the Dakota Building in New York City. As they walked out, John met a fan, Mark David Chapman, and kindly signed an autograph for him on a copy of his new album. This was one of John's last public acts. A simple interaction before heading to a recording studio where he continued to work on his music. Later that night, close to 11 o'clock, John and Yoko returned to the Dakota in their limousine. As they stepped out and walked towards the building's entrance, Chapman was still there, waiting. He suddenly shot John Lennon several times at close range. John was severely wounded. Police officers quickly rushed him to Roosevelt Hospital, but tragically, it was too late. John Lennon, at 40 years old, was pronounced dead at 11:15 p.m. The news of his death shocked people all over the world, causing an immediate and profound outpouring of grief from millions of fans, friends, and fellow artists. Yoko Ono released a statement asking for a silent vigil, not a funeral, to pray for John's soul. She requested that, instead of sending flowers, people donate to his Spirit Foundation, honoring his deep desire for peace on earth. In the weeks and months following his passing, John's music became even more meaningful and popular. His album Double Fantasy and singles like Just Like Starting Over quickly soared to #1 on the music charts in both the United Kingdom and the United States. Iconic songs such as Imagine and Happy Xmas, War Is Over also saw a huge rise in popularity, topping the charts again. John Lennon's legacy endures not only as a Beatle, but as a complex, flawed, and brilliant artist, whose powerful message of peace continues to touch and inspire countless people across generations. What part of John Lennon's message of peace do you think is most important for the world today?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.